Hello and welcome to a Weekly Stuff podcast, Let's Play.
Yes, the Weekly Stuff Let's Play. I'm Sean Chapman.
And I'm Jonathan Lack.
And we're here to play some video games. This week on the show, the inaugural episode,
we're playing Halo.
We are playing Halo Combat Evolved on the Master Chief Collection, so it's the anniversary edition.
It is. You might have heard we like this game.
Yes, we like it quite a bit, and that's why I think we've chosen it to be the first game, this sort of test of starting a Let's Play series, Jonathan.
So, you had the idea for this, Sean. What's the whole idea? Why don't you go ahead and load in and tell us what the idea is? So,
basically, the idea is, we've been trying to do something like this for a while now. And as sort of part of the big 200 episode anniversary thing for the Weekly Stuff podcast, I thought it would be a really great time to do this, to get started on doing a Let's Play feature. And I think kind of the objective and the goal of doing this is not to just be sort of fun and joke around, but kind of strike a similar balance is what we try to do on the podcast, you know? So we definitely want to have fun with it, but the reason why we're doing Halo is we also want to be very sort of critical and kind of make these a bit academic in nature as well. Mm-hmm. And so this is a game we both know front to back to forward. And that's
kind of the goal. We're not going to be doing like brand new games, probably. At least not at first. Yeah. We're going to go back to games that we sort of know and love and take a look at these, and maybe games that people aren't doing a ton of critical Let's Plays in these days.
Exactly. So we're starting with Halo.
We're going to play it with classic graphics.
Yeah, we might switch between to kind of look at some of the anniversary stuff here and there, because that stuff is interesting. And I think we're going to start on Heroic. If in the later levels, because we're planning on doing the whole game, if in the later levels that difficulty becomes a bit much to kind of talk and play at the same time, I reserve the right to bump it down to normal.
And if it becomes just too easy because you're that good, you reserve the right to bump up to Legendary.
Sure, I reserve the right. That's not going to happen. But, I mean, I've beaten Halo on Legendary enough. I don't need to prove myself in this format.
Okay.
But, yeah, so I'm driving the Let's Play. I have my hands on the controller. And, Jonathan, you are here, too, in the passenger seat to kind of help guide the conversation.
It should be fun. So let's go ahead and play. Warning, we're going to get started.
Yes. I'm deleting Jonathan's save progress in his Halo 1 campaign.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm very sorry about that.
So, Sean, what's the first time you played this game?
The first time I played Halo 1 was I was at a friend's house, and he had just gotten the Xbox, and the Xbox was relatively new at that point in time, and he was like, hey, man, you gotta check this out, this game Halo is amazing. And so we went and we played the first couple of levels of Halo, and I immediately fell in love with it. I immediately went back home, and I had to try to convince my parents to get an Xbox, which took a while to kind of get that going. But then eventually I did get an Xbox and got Halo 1 and Halo 2, and those are kind of that, and like the Knights of the Old Republic games are kind of the games I only ever really played on the Xbox, but it was enough for me.
That is what happened to me, though, with the 360. I had a cousin who had an original Xbox. I need to train myself not to say Xbox One.
Exactly, yes.
But he had the first Xbox, and we played the shit out of Halo 2 together, and it was just the most fun. So when I did get my 360 for my 14th birthday, this was the first game I put in. And
it's a hell of a game.
We were playing it in the same room where I first played it.
Yes.
And look at Captain Keyes, that beautiful face.
Old Captain Keyes. Yeah. While we're at the front of this Let's Play, I do want to say, for people who maybe are interested in the history of Halo and kind of a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, very recently on waypoint.vice.com, they released a really big feature called The Complete Oral History of Halo, I believe they called it. And it's basically this compilation of a bunch of different interviews they put together with different people at Bungie and some people at Microsoft and even a couple people at Apple when Halo was originally going to be an exclusive on the Mac. And it's this really great timeline of the history of Halo with a bunch of details that goes from the sort of genesis of Halo as a real-time strategy game on the PC to basically the 343 Industries era. So if there are people that are interested in it.
You can also hear composer Martin O'Donnell be really salty about Destiny.
Oh, yes.
So it is worth it for that alone.
Yeah, it's really great. There's also a lot of details of the Peter Jackson project that they were putting together, the Halo Chronicles game. Yeah. It's the only place that those details have come out.
I might not have read to that part.
No, yeah.
That sounds exciting.
It's very interesting. So that's a good resource. The Bungie YouTube channel also has some of their special feature documentaries they did for the Halo 2 and Halo 3 collections.
Yeah.
And those are great to see as well. So for sort of like supplemental reading, I guess, for this feature, if you're interested in more academic Halo kind of material.
This is the first time I've looked at Halo Combat Evolved since I watched the movie Aliens recently.
Oh yeah, that's a new experience for you, yeah?
Boy, this, do we call this homage or ripping off, Sean?
I mean, we're going to get at the end of this level is when you get the dropship pilot, and then of course we have Sergeant Johnson, not yet called Johnson yet. He's just one of the sergeants,
who
the
you
Marine
can
sergeants
kill
of
if
the game.
you want.
Yes, he is very much killable. But he is just Sergeant Apone from Aliens. Like, it's pretty absurd. And this speech right here that he's giving is the first example of what they do in a couple times in this game and some of the other Halo games of changing dialogue based on the difficulty. So this speech is different based on what difficulty you've picked for. So Johnson gets to have a couple of different good lines here.
Which one's your favorite?
The legendary one is always the best one.
Yeah,
legendary
it's so
one's
good.
always absurd.
Man, we let those dumb bugs out to the middle of nowhere to keep them from getting their filthy claws on Earth. But we stumbled onto something that's so hot for that they're scrambling over each other to get it. Well, I don't care if it's God's own anti-son of a bitch machine or a giant hula hoop. We're not gonna let them have it. What we will let them have is a belly full of lead and a pool of their own blood to drown in. Am I right, Marines?
Sir, yes, sir!
Mm-hmm. Damn right I am.
This is going to be your lucky day. I've played this game a lot.
Yeah.
So,
me too.
I've probably played this game and know more about Halo's campaign than I do any video game. So that's kind of why I wanted to start with this one.
Certainly in terms of first-person shooters, I have played this one to completion more than any other game.
Yes. We are unsealing the hushed casket right now.
On Heroic, do you get the little tutorial thing?
No, that's the one disadvantage of starting on Heroic, is I believe you do not get the lights. Yeah. But Halo 2, you get the light opening no matter what.
Nice. I was testing this earlier today and on normal, and I always forget that is there. The tutorial thing.
I mean, that is when I first sort of was able to intellectualize the process of, oh, I play these games on inverted.
Yes.
That light thing, and I've never looked
there it
back.
Is.
Yes, yes. When you're playing on normal, normally this kind of marine engineer person brings you over here and has you look at all the lights to determine whether or not you are a more heavily evolved member of the human race and thus want to use the inverted y-axis, or you are, you know, basically a Luddite.
This is what happens whenever Sean comes over and plays my Xbox, is that next time I go to play Halo or any other FPS, it's suddenly inverted and I have to remember what to do and how to fix it.
Yes. So unfortunately, our good friend, the tech engineer here, didn't make it. He never quite makes it. It's one of the many tragedies of Halo. You can never quite save him.
The first tragic death in a series rife with them.
Yes. I think we're going to see a lot of people die on this ship, the Pillar of Autumn.
The Pillar of Autumn is a very tragic ship.
Yes. We'll be back here later. You can actually get killed by that fire if you want. It's the first real hazard of the game.
I think I have been killed by that on Legendary at some point when I was digging around.
If you are like kind of not really paying attention and you're sort of talking to someone, it's very easy for that to happen. And you're just standing in the fire without paying attention. It's sort of just right in the middle of the hallway. So we can get some looks at the Covenant here. But we have no weapon, as the game helpfully says, and no grenades. And this is our friend Marine.
He's gonna die.
Everyone dies on the ship.
I know.
That's spoilers for the end of Halo. That's just, by the way.
I just want to, make us remember it because it's part of the journey.
It is all part of the journey. And this is actually what I'm thinking about. This is one of the things I really like about Halo 1 is when you have no weapon, which is kind of only this section of the game, and you use your flashlight, you can see the head bob on the flashlight because he's using the flashlight on his helmet, not the flashlight on the weapons, which is what he usually does. It's a nice little detail.
We're playing this with the original graphics, and the anniversary graphics are beautiful, as we just saw here. But I really do like... The original graphics hold up, I think, better than...
They're very clean.
They're very clean. We're playing this... They've been remastered in 1080p for this collection and 60 FPS, and I enjoy going back to them from time to time. See, this is where if you are playing the anniversary edition, if you want to get one of the terminals, that's where one of those are. Oh, right.
I just had that. I've also, 1,000 pointed the game, the anniversary edition, so I'm probably going to have a bunch of flashbacks to me searching frantically for all the different terminals and skulls in the game.
Yep.
Things are not going well.
Halo Anniversary had some insane achievements back in the day.
The library ones are particularly
tough.
Yes. Difficult.
There's the one on the Silent Cartographer where you have to get back up from the bottom without using a weapon. I love that one.
Yeah. Here we get the first meeting of Master Chief and Cortana.
Yep.
A little bit of sass back and forth. There's also earlier in this conversation, I think, is when they first say the word reach. And that's one of the fun things about Halo 1. And here you get the Cole Protocol which is they had all these little bits of world building that kind of meant not much when they were first writing the game, but then, of course, they had the Fall of Reach novel by Eric Nyland, which is a very good, I think, military science fiction kind of novel that came out with the game.
Yeah.
So
that's a hell of a book. It's especially like if you were really steeped in Halo lore back in the day.
Yeah.
And you were there like, oh, and this ending is where Halo started.
Yes.
And that was crazy.
Yeah.
Because you're like, these people have actually been through a lot in like the last 10 minutes.
Exactly. Like basically all of Master Chief's friends have already been killed, and you have the sniper Linda on the ship at the end of Fall of Reach. There's a little bit of a Easter egg later in this level in the anniversary edition they did for that.
I didn't know about that.
Yes, yeah, she's here. Catatonic, I suppose. The only other surviving Spartan 2 that Master Chief knows about. But they kind of got off on this interesting foot of putting in a lot of little hints of lore in the game, but leaving so much to the imagination of the audience, which I think really helped capture people like me who were getting into this game when they were pretty young. And it just had that kind of almost Star Wars-esque appeal to it, of being able to see in the corners of the screen all these hints of something much bigger. And it's one of the things I've been disappointed about in sort of the recent Halo games is digging so deep into that lore that it's no longer that interesting to me, because they're trying to fill in all those corners instead of just kind of evoking something larger.
It is, the Star Wars comparison is great for this game because it's the same kind of opening where you start on this ship in the middle of a bigger adventure going on, and shit hits the fan pretty much immediately.
And we're going to have to find some ammo as we go.
Why does he not have ammo for the gun?
I mean, he does. He just says that he doesn't, and he just leaves the sort of clip half empty, which I find really weird, because what the fuck was he shooting at that he didn't put bullets back into the clip?
He gets drunk sometimes and shoots cans on the mess deck.
So here we get
with
our
the best fucking
pistol.
weapon.
Yes, the infamous Halo 1 pistol. Our first enemies.
Nothing better.
Yeah. They don't pose a big threat to us right now. But we can also, if you really want to, you can go back in here, and you can just say, you know what, the human race is kind of on its last legs, and I think we're not going to make it out of here alive, so we might as well go out with dignity. So you can just kill Captain Keyes. You can just kill all these people if you want.
For most of the people, it really does nothing to change their ultimate fates.
No, not really. So you can just keep on doing this until eventually they're sending in the Marine Death Squads, which these guys are endless and eventually become invincible, so I don't know why they don't just have... I'm just gonna die here. I don't know why they don't just have them fight the Covenant off for us, but it's one of the fun things about the game is it does allow you to just murder people. Everything. Yeah, you can just go back and murder Captain Keyes immediately if you really want to. Of course, fight for Earth.
Nice.
Okay, so let's go. Let's stop messing around and go.
Kill some Covenant?
Kill some Covenant.
Those Marines could use some help, Chief.
You just automatically pick up that assault rifle because you don't have another weapon slot, so it just says, hey, here you go. Learn how to use these two guns that you're going to be using for most of the game. Because it's something about Halo 1 is there's actually, compared to the later Halo games, it does not have that many weapons.
God, by the time you get to Halo 5, there are 3 full weapon sets.
Yes,
at least.
They have like 5 different like rifles and 20 pistols. It gets pretty ridiculous at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah. You think you only have about 8 or 9 weapons in all of Halo 1. In fact, one of the things in the Halo oral history thing, the detail I didn't know about, is that they almost cut the shotgun out. Because they almost couldn't get the shotgun to work right. Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons why the shotgun you don't get until like 2/3 of the way into the game.
You know, I had never thought of that.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, I played Halo 2 multiplayer before I played anything else of Halo, and the shotgun in Halo 2 is like my favorite video game shotgun ever. And so like in Halo 1, you don't find the shotgun until later, but it was just like, that's the shotgun, it's in Halo. And the Halo 1 shotgun is also quite good.
Oh, it's ridiculously overpowered. That's something to kind of talk about with this game, thinking about the human pistol, is the balance in this game is kind of crazy. So they don't have any sort of battle rifle equivalent. The only sort of semi-automatic precision weapon you have is this human pistol with a 2x scope, which means you're using it for 99% of the game, which is pretty absurd at some point. But
there's definitely a point, especially if you're playing on Legendary, where all you want is a plasma pistol and a human pistol.
Yeah.
And you're good with that, because that's the only way you're going to kill some of those fuckers right there.
Yes, the elites. So yeah, that's the something that's interesting about the combat kind of mechanics of Halo that started with Halo 1 has persisted throughout the whole series is that they have kind of two health systems. They have the plasma shields that these elites and yourself have, and then you have the kind of ballistic health damage. And so plasma weapons are more effective against the shields. Which if I had picked up a plasma pistol, I could demonstrate that. But if the ballistic human weapons are more effective against just sort of the normal organic enemies. And that combination is really critical to kind of understanding how to use the Halo sandbox most effectively. So I'm going to pick up a plasma pistol here to demonstrate it later.
Got to get that overshield.
Yes, got to get the overshield. But so how the mechanics of Halo basically work is that the highest level to sort of play the game, particularly if you're playing multiplayer where you're playing against enemies that obviously have plasma shields, or against the elites in single player, is you want to use a plasma weapon to take down their shield, and then you use any precision weapon to get a headshot kill, because that's how basically the games work. Is any kind of semi-automatic weapon like the pistol or the battle rifle in the later games is a one-hit kill on an unshielded enemy if it shoots them in the kind of precision spot, which is an interesting detail when we later get to the levels with the hunters and talk about the most effective strategy for killing hunters in this game.
It's easy to remember from your childhood the hunters being hard in this game.
But they are not.
They're not. No, they are not. In fact, they are quite fun to fight once you know what you're doing.
Yes. I'm just going to beat the crap out of these guys.
Boy, the grunts look the most different in these original graphics.
Yeah, we can swap these, basically the Halo 3 models that they use in Anniversary Edition. The grunts have kind of different proportions.
I just love their weird-ass little faces.
Yes. Here you can see the blood effects in Halo 1. So all the Halo games, as far as I know, maybe some of the least recent ones this has changed, but they're all rated M, and there's no real cursing in them. There's, like, obviously no sexual content or anything like that. It's just this game is absurdly bloody.
It is. Because
the blood effects can just stack up and stack up and stack up and stack up onto top of each other. And with the Anniversary Edition, it's a lot harder to get this to happen. But on the original Halo, if you just did this for like 2 or 3 minutes, the blood effects would stack up in such a way without them disappearing that it would just completely tank the frame rate of your game as soon as you looked at them.
I did not know it would go that far.
Yes, it is pretty absurd. It's a little bit easier to do when we run into Jackals in level 2, so maybe I'll try to get in there to see if I can get it to happen in this version of the game. Because the Jackals, they have a lot of blood flowing through those veins, those little purple bastards. So
it's like a mosquito.
Yeah.
When you smash it, you don't think there's going to be that much blood. No, and it's actually just... Yeah, I understand why Halo 1 was rated M. The fact that the other games don't have some of those blood spurt issues...
Yeah.
I really don't know why the games were never rated T.
Yeah, to me, it's like the definition of a T franchise, is that it's like got some violence and stuff, but it's all the violence is against aliens other than in multiplayer, and when it's in multiplayer, you're fighting, like, basically cyborg-looking dudes.
I'd have to look this up. I think Halo 5 might have finally got a T.
Yeah, I feel like it probably did.
But I know at least through 4, these were all M.
Yeah. So you can see it, when you're playing this level on Heroic, you get grenades a lot earlier because enemies drop grenades. But when you're playing the game through on Normal, which is kind of the default difficulty, it does a pretty good job of making sure you're not overwhelmed at the beginning by having too many options. And so you kind of, start out with just the pistol, and then you get the assault rifle, and then you can pick up the plasma pistol and plasma rifle from these guys, which most players usually do not at the beginning. And you don't get the grenades until a little bit deeper into this level. So it's a nice... you have to kind of, when you're playing Halo 1, put yourself back into the time period of 2001. This was a launch game for the original Xbox, and there weren't a lot of first-person shooters on consoles. It was kind of like GoldenEye on the N64, Turok, like the different console ports of games like Doom. But Halo, to me, was the first one that really made that work, because I was never much of a GoldenEye guy on the N64. And having the 2 analog sticks on the controller and the nice sort of analog triggers and everything, it's just a really satisfying game to play.
I think launch games like this are fascinating because they're mostly a dying breed. We had Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild this year.
And even that was originally a Wii U game that got pushed to the Switch.
Right. But it's like the closest we've had kind of since Halo 1 of a game that was kind of this monumental. But this is a game that literally helped kind of invent and solidify a console genre in addition to creating a console brand.
Yeah.
And that's a fascinating thing. A console brand that is still around today, even if a little weaker than it once was.
Yeah, and when you think about it, there was a chance that Halo would have never come to the Xbox if Microsoft had not bought Halo when they were making it for the PC, and then eventually it turned into a third-person shooter that was going to be exclusive on the Mac, that Steve Jobs actually introduced Halo to the world on like a max stage.
We are starting to see some great games come back to the map, but this is one of the coolest I've ever seen. This game is going to ship early next year from Bungie, and this is the first time anybody has ever seen it. It's the first time they've debuted it. And so I'm very happy to welcome on the stage Jason Jones, who is the co-founder of Bungie and the Halo project lead. Halo is the name of this game, and we're going to see, for the first time, Halo.
Microsoft made a really good move by buying Bungie. That bet really paid off for them, because it was the flagship franchise for the Xbox. It got me to buy the Xbox, and I was like an Xbox faithful for basically all of the original Xbox and most of the 360 era.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you really do wonder, like, what would the Xbox have been without this game?
Yeah. And this room, when you play this game on Legendary...
This is one of the hardest
This room
rooms.
is ridiculously hard, and I feel very satisfied that I was able to just clear through it on Heroic without really thinking much about it.
Yeah.
But...
there's a lot of, like, waiting under the stairs, throwing grenades patiently.
Yeah, because when you come into this room from down here, it's like you have... There's enemies all up on top, and there are enemies coming through all the doors on the bottom. And so you have, like, this really bad cover with all these holes in it, and you're getting shot at from every single conceivable direction.
It's a very good example of how Halo 1 is super different on Legendary than it is on the other difficulties. Yes. Because on, Easy, Normal, Heroic, this first level is such a great introductory level because it doesn't throw too much at you, but it does, I think, introduce you to the general challenge of this game. But if you go on Legendary, it's a beast from the beginning, Yep. This part's also very hard on Legendary. That's an experience I get a lot when I go back to old Halo campaigns, is the PTSD flashbacks of playing these on Legendary.
Yes. It definitely changes the way you see the game. Because the thing about playing this on harder difficulties, going back to what I was saying about the difference between the plasma health and the sort of the ballistic health, is that gap becomes so much wider when they have as much health and the shields are as powerful as they are on Legendary, that you basically just are forced to exploit that difference. So you have to use the plasma weapons, because the plasma weapons in Halo 1 are so ridiculously powerful that I usually don't like using them because I don't find them as satisfying to use as the plasma pistol, or as the assault rifle. But as you can see, you can just take their shields down ridiculously fast with the plasma pistol. It just fires as fast as you can pull the trigger. The balance of this game is not the finely tuned thing it is in the later Halo games. So you kind of have to sometimes force yourself not to exploit that too much, because it's kind of not as fun to play it that way. Unless you're playing on Legendary, where it is the only way to survive.
It's very true.
So you can see Threshold, the gas giant that Halo orbits out there. Look at it in the nice new graphics.
Yep. We were talking about this on our most recent podcast episode.
Yeah.
Most recent when we were talking about this. I don't know when this will come out.
Episode 199.
Of how great Bungie's skyboxes have always been.
Yeah.
And you do have to put yourself in the mindset of 2001, to fully appreciate them in these graphics, but they really are gorgeous.
Yep.
Even back then. They had an eye for that art direction that has not abated to this day.
No.
And an eye for just fucking satisfying combat.
Yep. This is a part in the game when the first time I played Halo, I remember getting stuck
me
before
too.
being able to find this thing for the longest time.
I remember that vividly.
Yeah. And get these little weird hallways. This is the wrong way to go, but I just like skulking around in here. And you can see, going back to the flashlight thing earlier, you can see here the flashlight is attached directly to the end of the weapon. So you can see when you switch weapons, the flashlight follows it. I always found that detail really, really awesome.
Well, with what you said earlier about it bobbing with your head.
Yeah. Yeah,
nice.
Because when it was up on your helmet, of course it bobs with your head, because that's where the flashlight is. Let's go on this one. It's all nice.
This is an episode this is a level of fairly, narrow corridors and whatnot.
Yes, it's very
but
claustrophobic.
moments like this still do help to open you up to the Halo style of combat, which is this big sandbox, as you said earlier. There's almost always multiple ways to approach things.
Yeah. Good, but like the thing about it being these like very tightly defined sort of grids of corridors is that the different ways to approach things are very clear. So you could come down this way in this fight, or you could do as I did and hook around there and kind of come at them from the side, or you can come through some of the different passageways through the like here and take them by surprise and then pull them into these really tight corridors and swing around on them. So having the level set in this very sort of like a grid-like fashion, I think quickly teaches the player how to approach flanking enemies in the kind of the Halo combat sandbox, as it were.
Well, and knowing that the second level we're going to play, spoilers, is Halo, is where you're actually down on the planet, and that opens up so massively it is a great 1-2 punch to get you into this.
Trying to shoot me, but haha, suckers, this is Halo 1. No breakable glass in this game. They couldn't figure out how to get it work until Halo 2.
They lost the code for breakable glass along with the original pistol on the Pillar of Autumn. I think both of those, like the design specs, were on this ship and never to be recovered.
So this is the, I believe this is, somewhere it says Linda, I thought. Maybe it's in a different one of these rooms. In one of these rooms, there's the Easter egg. I think here it is. Somewhere around here.
There's John.
Yes, Spartan, John 107, Linda 058. So it's a nice little nod to the books that they did in Anniversary Edition. They, of course, brought Linda and the other Spartan 2s from the books into the proper Halo canon in Halo 5, and it was disappointing to everybody involved. So
it really is. That sounded like such a great idea.
Yeah, but it turns out when you introduce basically like 7 new characters into your game, you don't kind of have enough time to develop them.
Into your game when, you know, one side of them get 3 levels total.
Yeah, Halo 5 was the thing. So this is something that's fun about playing again, going back to the difficulties. I'm gonna get blown up here. But this elite that comes out here, on normal and easy, he just dies from the explosion, which I feel like is what is supposed to happen. But because...
Like, cinematically, that makes sense.
But when you play the harder difficulties, since they changed they upgrade sort of the ranks of most of the enemies when you're playing on Heroic or Legendary, he has enough health to just survive it. And it always just seems like kind of weird. It always just feels like he's supposed to die there. He's not supposed to live. He escapes his fate for...
I just like the idea of an elite being so tough, he's like, I'm going to survive this explosion.
Yeah.
But the Master Chief, you know, he's even tougher.
Hose these guys down with the assault rifle.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is just one of the greatest melees of all time.
Yeah.
And definitely foreshadowing the wonderful melees of Destiny 10 years later.
Yeah. Dude, let's talk about that, like the melee stuff and some of the weapon stuff here, because it's something that the Halo 1 does this stuff so differently than Halo 2 or 3 or like any of the other Halo games. I really like you have this like kind of like dance almost to it, where in Halo 2 they introduced the kind of the lunge aspect of it, that you kind of, when you are close enough to an enemy and you do a melee, you're pulled into them and have that impact. Whereas in Halo 1, you really just have to kind of time everything, and all the animations are very deliberate and have this kind of sense of pacing to them with the sound effects. Like you can get this like 1, 2, 3 on the sound, and that kind of rhythm of it was always something I really enjoyed, even if it definitely is not as effective, I think, a way to handle the melee in multiplayer, where you need the responsiveness of that lunge. In Halo 1 is very satisfying to just...
Very satisfying, and I think adds layers to the challenge, because if you do it right, you can take down a lot of enemies with this.
Yeah.
But of course, if you're on a higher difficulty and you start making mistakes with that, you're gonna die pretty fast.
Yeah.
The melee is not a catch-all for these things.
Whap. Whap.
There you go.
So that kind of dance of closing in, hosing them with the assault rifle, whap, and pulling back. This is where you get the grenades for the first time, if you're playing on normal. I think this is the first time you can get frag grenades on any difficulty. Just kind of, they just give you like 10 of these things, so you can just really just kind of go ridiculous with it. There you see a mechanic in Halo 1 that they pulled out for the other Halo games that is always the saddest thing to me, is that in Halo 1, grenades, when they explode, blow up grenades that are already on the ground.
I love it.
Creating chain explosions that will destroy you all the time, because it'll just completely blow up this entire hallway you're in through a chain effect.
Well, on Anniversary, they added the Skull Grunt Funeral Party.
Yes.
Which is where the grunts become plasma grenades when they die. And if you play your cards right, that can actually help you out, but if you're in a confined space like this level, it can become incredibly difficult to avoid those explosions.
Yes.
And we're of course playing without skulls right now.
Yeah.
But
this is another spot where you always get turned around when you're playing the game. And so that's the Pillar of Autumn. That is level number 1.
These days, I always forget how short it is.
Yeah, it is a quick, especially, obviously I've played this game a billion times, so I know exactly where to go and how to breeze through it. But it is a quick, short little level that funnels you through, teaches you all the basic mechanics of encountering enemies, how to flank around enemies, what kinds are the basic enemies in the game, because obviously there's only the grunt and elites. And so in this next level, we'll be introduced to the jackals and then the hunters and the other enemy types later in the game.
It's something we're going to talk about throughout this Let's Play, is the progression of Halo 1, particularly in enemy types, is so masterful. And it's something that I think too few games have actually learned from, including other Halo games at times.
Exactly.
It's something Doom, for instance, from last year. We talked a lot about how well I think that learned from Halo Combat Evolved.
Yeah, in terms of pacing out the different weapons you have access to, the kinds of environments you're tackling, and the enemies that they populate those environments with. It is a tricky thing, I think, pacing a first-person shooter campaign like that. And lots of games just kind of take the multiplayer first, and since they take the multiplayer first, they don't consider how those elements are going to work in the campaign and how to pace them out.
Halo 2 being one of the best examples of that ever.
Yes, that is very true. Halo 2 that's if we ever do a Halo 2 one of these, there's a whole lot to talk about with that respect there.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Halo 2, probably the Halo campaign, at least of the trilogy, I've played the least.
Yeah.
For good reason. It's got some good stuff.
I've played the first 4 levels of the Halo 2 campaign a lot. The later levels, not as much.
The level where you get on top of the scarab and all that.
Yes,
that's
good.
Great.
Flawless Cowboy, the subtitle for this section of the second level Halo. Great title, Flawless Cowboy.
They have so much... Bungie is so good at wordplay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed in the Destiny 2 beta, all the, yellow level enemy names.
Yes, they're very good.
Beautifully silly names.
Beautifully silly. So you see here, we have taken the drop pod from the Pillar of Autumn, crash landed here, and everyone is dead, including our co-star from the movie Aliens, the dropship pilot from Aliens, has sadly passed away. So
did not make it as long as he did in the movie.
Yeah, so I think, Jonathan, that we are finished level 1. So I think this is where we can take a break here for a second and split up, because we're going to do level 2 Halo in the next episode.